Okay. So it is being said that the children were saying that it's better than the sun lamps, isn't it? So all the children are agreeing that yes, the actual sun is much, much better than the sun lamps they were having at their homes. All right. Then they stopped running and stood in the great jungle. So the teacher was telling the students that don't go too far, but the students kept on running and went into the jungle that covered Venus. All right. That grew and never stopped growing. So, this jungle, the author is saying that the jungle kept on growing and it never stopped growing. Because if you remember, on the first page itself, the author was telling us that the rain was damaging the trees in the forest, and as 1,000 trees fell, another 1,000 trees grew also, right? So the trees kept on getting destroyed and they kept on growing again and again. So this was going on for thousands of days. So again, here also you can see the author is saying, making a similar remark, that the jungle grew and it never stopped growing tumultuously even as you watched it. So tumultuously means wildly, all right. Because while you are gardening something, you give a proper shape, proper patterns to anything, all right, to all the plants, to all the trees, to the grass, everything you give a particular shape, a particular pattern. But in the jungle, everything grows wildly, uh, right? Everything is in the wild, natural, it grows according to its own will. You don't give patterns to things that are in the jungle. All right. It was a nest
Excuse
of
me, sir.
yes, sir.
Children, lower down your hand.
Okay. So it was a nest of octopi clustering up great arms of flesh-like weed. So now the author is saying that the jungle had a lot of octopi. Octopi is the plural of octopus. All right. So there were a lot of octopus present. This is what the author is saying, clustering up great arms of flesh-like weed. So weed, if you see, the author described weed earlier also as the unwanted plant. Yes, the wild plant. So here also the arms of octopus are being called like unwanted. All right. So there was a nest of octopi where a lot of octopi were living. Wavering. So they were wavering their great arms. Wavering means a movement where a thing moves back and forth. It comes in front and then it goes back. So the arms of octopus are being described as wavering. All right. Flowering in this spring. All right. So now the jungle was earlier being called as the nest of octopi when it was raining, but now this jungle is being called as flowering in this spring. So now now everything is looking beautiful, flowering once the sun has come out and the springtime is present. All right. Now the author is describing the jungle again when it was raining. It was the color of rubber and ash. Now, if you see the color of rubber and the color of ash, it's almost gray, right? It's grayish in color, very dull, very pale looking color. All right. This jungle for many years. So this jungle was of a very pale grayish color for a long time, for many years without the sun. This was the color of the jungle. Whenever you looked at it, it looked very pale and grayish. All right. It was the color of stones. So usually the stones are dark in color. All right. So now the author is also comparing the color of the jungle to the color of stones, and white cheese and ink. Ink is also dark in color, and white cheeses means white. So everything is being compared here to the black and white. All right. So either or the entire look of the jungle is being compared to black, white, and gray. All right. So it basically means that there was the jungle's look was totally colorless. All right. It was all black and white. There was no color present in their lives. This is what the author is trying to compare jungle to. And it was the color of the moon. If you see the moon also has a pale white light. All right. So everything is being compared here to either white, black, or grayish. which means that everything was black and white. There was no color present in their lives before the sun came out. But now, since the sun has come out, so everything seems to be flowering in this spring. The entire jungle is looking to be flowering. All right. Now, I think someone should start reading. Anirudh, do you want to read? Okay. Vaishnavi. Sir, please unmute Vaishnavi.
Okay, sir. Yes, Vaishnavi.
Yes, sir. The children lay out laughing on the jungle mattress and heard the sign of squeak.
And heard it sigh and squeak. Yes.
Squeak under them.
Resilient. It's resilient. Yes.
Resilient and alive. They ran among the trees. They slipped and fell. They pushed each other. They played hide and seek and tag. But most of all, they squinted at the sun.
Yes.
Until tears ran down their faces. They put their hands up on the yellowness.
Up to that yellowness, yes.
Up to that yellowness and that amazing blueness, and they breathed of the fresh,
as they breathed of fresh air, yes.
Air, and listened to the silence which suspended them in a blessed sea of no sound and no motion. They looked at everything and savored everything.
Savored, yes.
Then wildly, like animals escaped from their cave, they ran in shouting circles. They ran for an hour and did not stop running.
Okay, stop. So now, after describing the color of the jungle before and after the sun has come out, now the author is talking about the children, what they are doing over there. So the children lay out laughing on the jungle mattress. So mattress here means they were running here and there in the jungle on the leaves that have fallen on the ground, on the twigs and the branches of the trees that had fallen to the ground, and heard it sigh and squeak under them. All right, squeak is a very shrill sound. It is being used because the children were running around and their feet must have been falling on the leaves and on the branches, making the branches crack. All right. So there was some squeaking and sighing sound coming from the jungle mattress, and the jungle was resilient and alive. Resilient is something which is very quick to recover from something. All right. If you fall ill and you recover very quickly from that illness, you will be called resilient. So here the jungle is being called resilient because it was suffering from rainfall for the last 10 years. But now when the sun has come out, it is recovering very quickly. All right. So that is why the author is saying the jungle to be very resilient and alive. So it is coming back to life very quickly, and the jungle is very resilient over here. They ran among the trees. So the children started running among the trees. They slipped and fell. They pushed each other. They played hide and seek and tag. So now they are playing. But most of all, they squinted at the sun. So they were playing all sorts of games, but the activity that they were doing the most was squinting at the sun. So what does squinting means? It means to look at something with the eyes partially closed. So why they are looking with partially closed eyes towards the sun? Because one cannot look directly at the sun, right? Because the glare of the sun is so much that you will feel pain in your eyes if you will look directly into the sun. So they were looking at the sun with partially open eyes. All right. And they were, why they were looking at the sun most of the times? Because they knew that they are getting to look at the sun for only a small period of time. After that, they will not be able to look at the sun for 7 years in a go, right? So they wanted to see the sun as much as possible. Okay. So they squinted at the sun until tears ran down their faces. So now the glare of the sun is so much that if you keep on looking at the sun time and again, so naturally tears will start flowing from your eyes. If we also
Remember one thing, children, I have told you that
so tears ran down their faces. They put their hands up to the yellowness and that amazing blueness. So they were so happy that they were putting their hands up towards the sky because they were feeling so happy. They were seeing the yellowness of the sun and the blueness of the sky as they breathed of the fresh air. So now the air of the spring is being called very fresh. All right, over here. And listened to the silence. So now this is a sort of figure of speech, right? This is an oxymoron where two things are being compared which are totally opposite, right? Why? Because you can't listen to the silence actually. When something is silent, you can't listen to anything. But here the author is saying that they were listening to the silence. Why? Because they had never experienced silence in their lives, so they were trying to enjoy the silence. So the author is saying that they listened and listened to the silence, which suspended them into a blessed sea of no sound and no motion. So now again there is an oxymoron because there can be no sea where there is no sound and no motion. All right, because there will be waves in the sea, right? So the sea cannot be without any motion. If there is a sea, there will always be waves. And when there are waves, then the waves will make some sort of gushing sound. All right. So if a sea is present, there will always be sound and motion present. But the author is saying that this was some blessed sea, as if blessed sea, where there was no motion and no sound. So the children were listening to the silence. They looked at everything and savored everything. Savored means to be delighted by everything. So they were looking at everything and they were delighted by everything because everything was looking so beautiful and they were experiencing a lot of happiness in this springtime, which is very brief in time, right? It is of a very short duration. Then wildly like animals escaped from their caves and ran in shouting circles. So now they were just like animals. They were running round and round in circles and shouting because they were trying to express their happiness. All right. They ran for an hour and they did not stop running. So they continued running for an hour. And then in the midst of their running, one of the girls failed. So when they were running and an hour has passed, now one of the girls wailed, means she cried in sadness. All right. So everyone stopped when that girl wailed. So now Bhavya, you want to read? So please unmute her.
yes, sir, yes, sir.
On teachers.
Good morning.
The dog girl is standing in the open, held out her hand. Oh, look, she said, trembling.
Trembling. Yes, Bhavya, it's trembling.
They came slowly to look at her open palm.
Palm.
In
It's
the
palm,
center,
not palm, but it's palm. L is silent over here. Yes.
palm, palm. In the center of it, sir, what is this?
Yes, cupped. In the center of it, cupped a huge.
Cupped
Yes.
the huge was a single raindrop. She began to try looking at it. They glanced quietly at the sky. Oh, oh, oh! A few cold drops fell on their noses and their cheeks and their mouths. The sun faded behind a state of mist. A wind blew cool around them. They turned and started to walk back toward the underground house, their hands at their sides, their smiles vanishing away.
Yes, vanishing away.
A boom of thunder started them and
Startled.
like
It's startled.
it startled them and like leaves before a new hurricane
Hurricane, yes.
they tumbled upon each other and ran like they stuck 10 miles away, 5 miles away, a mile, a half mile. The sky darkened into midnight in a flash.
Okay,
They
stop. Stop,
stood.
stop. So,
Thank you, sir.
yes. So now what is happening that now one of the girls wailed. So everybody stopped that what happened. So the girl standing in the open held out her hand. Oh, look, look, she said, trembling. Trembling here means she was shaking. All right. She was shaking because of fear. And why she was fearing? They came slowly to look at her open palm. All right. So palm is the inside of your hand. All right. So in her palm, she was having cupped and huge was a single raindrop. So she had a raindrop in her palm. She began to cry looking at it. So why she was crying looking at it? Because she knew that the rain is now coming back and the sun will go behind the clouds once again. And they will now be having rain for another 7 years. So that is why she is crying that now everything will turn dark again. Now nothing will be colorful and now they won't be able to enjoy the silence. Now there will be all noise. Yeah, yes. So now the rainy season is coming back. They glanced quietly at the sky. So everybody started looking at the sky. Oh, oh, a few cold drops fell on their noses. So now the rain is actually starting to come, and now the raindrops are now falling on their noses, their cheeks, and their mouth. The sun faded behind a stir of mist. So now the clouds are also coming, and the sun is now hiding behind it. A wind blew cool over them. So now the wind is starting to get cold now, and they turned and started to walk back towards the underground house. So they are living in underground houses because of so much rain. So now they are starting to move back to their houses, their hands at their sides. So this phrase is very important, their hands at their sides, because when the sun came out, they were so happy that they were putting their arms towards the sky. But now they are so sad and depressed seeing the rain come back that now their hands are at their sides and their smiles have now vanished away. Their smiles vanishing away. A boom of thunder startled them. Startle here means to shock them. So now the sound of thunder and lightning has also started to come, and like leaves before a hurricane. So when a hurricane comes, it starts blowing all the leaves, right? So the author is saying that like leaves before the hurricane, they tumbled. Wait a minute. So they tumbled upon each other. So now since they are running, so now they are again pushing each other and running so that they can reach their homes faster. Lightning struck 10 miles away, 5 miles away, a mile, a half a mile. So now lightning is also coming closer to them. So now everything is getting darker. The sky darkened into midnight in a flash. So now this line is also very important. Now the author is comparing it to the midnight. Why? Because when the sun was there, everything was so bright, right? So now when the clouds have come, so now the author is comparing this darkness to the midnight. All right. It was not as if it was actually midnight. But since the sun has gone behind the clouds and now there were overcast conditions and there was some darkness now after the sun is gone. So now the author is comparing this darkness to the midnight darkness. Okay. Now, sir, please unmute Sneha.
Okay, sir. Rest
They
of you
stood
lower your
in the
hand.
doorway of the
Yes, Sneha.
They stood in the doorway of the underground for a moment until it was raining hard. Then they closed the door and heard the gigantic sound of the rain
Gigantic.
falling in tons.
Yes. Gigantic means very
Tons.
huge. Yes. All right.
Gigantic sound of the rain falling in tons and avalanches everywhere and forever. Will it be 7 more years? Yes, 7. Then one of them gave a little cry. Margot, what? She's still in the closet where we locked her. Margot, they stood as if someone had driven them, like so many stakes, into the floor. They looked at each other and then looked away. They glanced out at the world that was raining now and raining steadily. They could not meet each other's glances. Their faces were solemn and pale. They looked at
Solemn.
their hands and feet, their faces down. Margot, one of the girls said, well, no one moved. Go on, whispered the girl. They walked slowly down the hall in the sound of cold rain. They turned through the doorway to the room in the sound of the storm and thunder. Lightning on their faces, blue and terrible. They walked over to the closet door slowly and stood by it. Behind the closet door was only silence. They unlocked the door even more slowly and let Margot out.
All right. So now this completes the text of the story. So now I will explain this last part and then we will complete our story. Okay. So we were here. They stood in the doorway of the underground for a moment until it was raining very hard. So they were standing by the door. All right. Then they closed the door and heard the gigantic sound of the rain falling in tons and avalanche. So now all the things are coming back, all the tidal waves, the storms, the thunder, the lightning, avalanche, tornadoes, hurricanes, everything the author was talking about earlier, now everything is coming back. All right. And gigantic sound means the huge sound of the rain that was they used to hear, that they were used to hearing. So that sound has come back. Now, why the author is saying everywhere and forever, especially forever? Because 7 years is a very long time. So the author is comparing the period of 7 years to forever over here. All right. Because if you have to live for 7 years in such a bad weather, it seems like you are living forever in such terrible weather. All right. Okay. So now one of the students asked, will it be 7 more years? So now the question is, now will it be 7 more years for us to look at the sun? Yes, 7. So now the other one is replying, yes, it will be 7 more years for us if we want to look at the sun. Then one of them gave a little cry, Margaret. So now one of them remembers about Margaret. They were so happy playing in the springtime, looking at the sun, that they forgot about Margaret. All right. But now when they are back, now they are remembering that where is Margaret? What? So now they are shocked. She is still in the closet where we locked her. So now they know that Margaret is still in the closet where they had locked her. They stood as if someone had driven them like so many stakes into the ground. Stake is something which you put into the ground. For example, if you want to put on a flag or anything, then you put a part of the pole in the ground, right? A part of it in the ground and a part of it is above the ground. So this that thing is called stake. So now they were acting like stakes. Why the author is saying them to be stakes? Because now they don't want to move towards Margaret, because they know that they have wronged Margaret a lot. So they were not having the courage to move towards Margaret. So that is why the author is calling them to be stakes, as if they were fixed in the ground. They stood as if someone had driven them like so many stakes into the floor, meaning that someone has dug them into the ground, as if, because they were not wanting to move towards Margaret. They looked at each other and then looked away. So now they were feeling ashamed and guilty of one another that they have wronged Margaret. So they were looking at each other and then looking away. They glanced out at the world that was raining now. So now they were seeing that now it is raining. If we take Margaret out from the closet, she won't be able to see the sun, the springtime, the blue sky, the colorful world. So now Margaret will has missed out on all those things. So they glanced out at the world that was raining now, and raining steadily. They could not meet each other's glances. Their faces were solemn and pale. So they were sad and pale because of the situation. So now all of them are feeling very guilty with what has happened. Okay. Margaret, one of the girls said, well, no one moved. Go on, whispered the girl. So now the girl is saying that let's go on, at least we should take her out from the closet, right? So they walked slowly down the hall in the sound of cold rain. They turned through the doorway to the room in the sound of storm and thunder, lightning on their faces. So in the when you see that there's lightning, the lightning is so strong that you feel the reflection of lightning in your faces also, right? So this is what the author is describing. Blue and terrible. They walked over to the closet slowly and stood by it. So nobody was having the courage to open it. So they were just standing at the closet and watching it and stood by it. Nobody was daring to open the closet because they didn't know what they will say to Margaret and how will they face Margaret. Behind the closed closet door was only silence. So now, earlier when they went back, Margaret was crying and throwing herself against the closet door. But this time, when they have returned, there was only silence. There were no sound of cries coming, or there was no trembling of the closet door. There was only silence present. All right. So, and the last line, they unlocked the door even more slowly and let Margaret out. So we know why they were opening the door slowly, because they didn't know how to face her. They were guilty and ashamed of their action. So just they slowly unlocked the door and let Margaret out. So this completes our story. All right. So please unmute Angel.
Angel. Yes, Angel.
Yes, sir. Sir, may you explain this again? In a blessed sea of no sound and no motion.
Yes. So the author is calling to be that sea to be blessed. Why blessed? Because there was no sound and no motion present. So that this is what I am saying, na, that there cannot be any sea where there is no sound and no motion, because sea itself is full of water, and where there is water, so much water, there will always be waves. So there will be continuous motion going on, and when there are so many waves, then sound is naturally going to come. All right. So this is not possible. So the author is comparing two opposite things, right? So this is what I am talking about, that it was an oxymoron, a figure of speech which compares two opposite things.
And
Okay.
so this one also, the children lay out laughing on the jungle mattress and heard it sigh and squeak under them, resilient and alive.
It was resilient and alive. Yes. So the
Yes, sir.
children were running on the jungle mattress. It means they were running in the jungle, and mattress is being called to the branches, to the twigs, to the leaves that had fallen on the jungle floor. So when they were running on that, there were certain noises coming out. All right, because the twigs might be breaking, the branches were coming under their feet. So this is how the author is describing the sounds to, like the jungle mattress was squeaking. All right. And after that, resilient means the jungle was very quick to recover from all that rain. All right. It was coming back to life very quickly. Okay.
Thank, thank you,
Akash?
sir.
Yes. So please unmute Akash.
Sir, hardly 5 minutes are left. Then we have another class.
Yes, sir, I am also having a class at 9. I am wanting to complete it. Okay, Akash, I'm taking the last one.
Just a minute.
So please unmute Akash.
Yes, yes. Akash. Yes, Akash.
Can you please, please explain me the cell 50, page number 51, first line. Lightning struck 10 miles away, 5 miles away, and a mile and a half miles. Sir, I'm not understood why the miles are coming in the story.
It means that how far the lightning was striking. So it means that there were multiple lightnings. All right.
Okay,
Lightning was, yes, one lightning was coming one after the other. All right. So it was just a way of saying that all the thunder, lightning, and rain was encircling them. All right. So the same
Okay, sir.
environment was coming back at them. This was the author's way of saying that. All right. Okay,
Thank you, sir.
Bhavya, I will take your doubt afterwards. I think now only you are left. Okay. So now I am ending the class because I am also having a class from 9. Okay. So